Atwell.
Here.
Regent Delgado. Regent Evers. Here. Regent Greeby. Regent Hall.
Here.
Regent Jones.
Here.
Regent Klein.
Here.
Regent Milner.
Yes, here.
Regent Mueller.
Here.
Regent Chris Peterson.
Here.
Regent Plant.
Here.
Regent Ring.
Here.
Regent Stile.
Here.
Regent Tyler.
Here.
Regent Woodburn. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we consider any items on today's agenda in open session, are there any board members who wish to declare a conflict of interest?
Regent President Bailing, I would. For the Business and Finance Committee agenda, item 1.2G, the UW-Madison contract with John Deere and Company, I have a small financial interest which will require me to recuse.
Thank you, Regent Vice President Peterson. Regent Milner.
I have the same conflict of interest, and I will recuse myself for that, too.
Thank you, Regent Milner. I would just ask that those two regents recuse themselves from discussing and voting on those select items. Regents, minutes of the June 7th through the 8th, 2018 Board of Regents meeting have been provided. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and thank you. A report of the Wisconsin Technical College System Board and Higher Aids Ed Board has been provided. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll keep moving. At this time, we'll move to item number 4 on our agenda, a report from President Cross with an update on events from across the system. President Cross, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Regent President Bailing. As we heard yesterday during the Guardians Initiative presentation, there is great potential on our campuses as well as in business communities and all communities around the state to tell our story, and I hope we all will, and I encourage that very much so. Just 2 items. Earlier this month, the UW system presented our second Wisconsin Ideas Summit, focused this time on smart futures. The summit, expertly hosted, by the way, by Chancellor Ford and her team at UW Parkside, thank you, Debbie, attracted close to overflow crowds, bringing together educational leaders, government officials, industry leaders, and community members to learn what a smart community really looks like and how we can envision and create our own. The summit was a great example of the critical role the university can play as we strive to help cities, communities, our students, and our state prepare for a connected digital future. One of the themes we heard during last year's Wisconsin Ideas Summit on dairy issues was the need for ongoing and increased collaboration to address challenges facing the dairy industry in Wisconsin. In response to our summit, Governor Walker asked DATCAP Secretary Sheila Harsdorf and me to convene a dairy task force. We just finished our first meeting. It was held recently, and we're excited about the work ahead. The challenges facing the dairy industry are numerous, as many of us know. And now it's time for some news around the system, so I direct your attention to the screen. This summer at UW-La Crosse, Assistant Professor Niti Mishra and Senior Jackson Radens used drones to generate 3D maps of a local rock quarry. The images and analysis they produced are superior to traditional ground surveys and help companies more effectively manage their assets. UW Green Bay and the UW system are teaming up with the Green Bay Packers and Microsoft to help launch new companies in Wisconsin. A recently announced Entrepreneur in Residence position at Titletown Tech will connect startup businesses with investment. UW Eau Claire and local software company Jamf partnered in July to offer the Blue Gold Beginnings Coding Day Camp. This week-long camp taught youth in grades 6 through 12 to build websites, games, and other applications. UW at Whitewater, Media Arts and Game Development undergraduates won first place in an international competition held in Italy. Mentored by Assistant Professor of Communications Nick Wong, students Luke Lamberg, Nicole Nelson, and Brandon Hannabarger created a hand therapy musical game to increase range of motion. Summer is not a break from studies for students in UW Superior's English as a Second Language international program. Lam Wong Mai of Vietnam plans to study international business and finance after she passes the English proficiency requirement from this accredited intensive program. UW Stout undergraduates are researching how to improve the Red Cedar River watershed. The lake's research experience examines solutions to problems caused by toxic blue-green algae. Geography professor Insfree McKinnon appreciates working on research that involves the local community. Madeline Fielder is among hundreds of UW Stevens Point students who earn valuable work experience through summer internships. The sociology major is working with Portage County Community Justice programs. Other students are involved in educational travel to Europe, research projects, and career-enhancing experiences. UW River Falls Assistant Professor of Conservation and Environmental Science, Kevin Juneau, led a group of students on an international tropical restoration experience this summer. The team traveled to Andrews Island to collect data and to assist the Bahamas Forestry Unit. UW Platteville's Pioneer Farm hosted the 42nd annual Lafayette County Dairy Breakfast in June. More than 3,000 people toured the university's 430-acre farm. Director Charles Steiner said, "The event is a great way to promote agriculture and the dairy industry." At UW Parkside, Professor Abby Curavilla led a Doing Business in Italy study abroad. Meanwhile, theater art students joined acting companies across the country. And geosciences major Mark Herpchak with Dr. Rachel Headley explored the Laurentide ice sheet's impact on Racine County. UW Oshkosh's Grandparents University is an educational program that brings grandparents and their grandchildren together for 2 fun-filled days of cross-generational exploration and learning. UWO alumni and other participants enjoyed sharing a chapter of their lives with the younger generation. UW Fond du Lac, a branch campus of UW Oshkosh, is partnering with the local Children's Museum to provide research opportunities through the Living Laboratory. Sophomore Grace Hudson created a game to research young children's use of prepositions. UW Milwaukee is making a commitment to big data with its partnership in the Northwestern Mutual Data Science Institute. The $40 million institute will include the work of scientists studying ways to harness the torrent of data generated in today's computer-driven society. Middle school students visited a UW Madison archaeological site at Astalon State Park in southeast Wisconsin to learn how people lived 1,000 years ago. Children's interest in archaeology is piqued when they see artifacts and discuss the process of excavation and radiocarbon dating. Idea Advance earned a Global Good Practice Award from the University Industry Innovation Network at its annual competition held in London. Idea Advance supports entrepreneurship on UW campuses and is a partnership between UW Extension, UW System, and the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. For those of you unfamiliar with Idea Advance, this is an exciting partnership between the UW System and WEDC that is helping to commercialize the ideas and technology generated in our UW labs and classrooms statewide. The accolades they received in London are well-deserved, and I would like to take this opportunity to recognize several key players in this initiative who are here with us today. Idella Yambin. Idella, would you stand, please? Program Manager for Idea Advance Seed Fund with the Institute of Entrepreneurship and Economic Development, formerly administered by UW Extension and now after restructuring associated with the system. So Mark Lang, you heard from Mark yesterday, Executive Director of the Institute of Entrepreneurship and Economic Development, and David Bruckhardt, UW Systems Corporate Relations and Economic Engagement Lead, who also has a joint appointment with WEDC. So congratulations to you folks as well. That concludes my report, President Bailey.
Thank you, President Cross. I'll now call upon Regent Stile to present a report of the actions taken by the Capital Planning and Budget Committee. Regent Stile.
Thank you very much. The Capital Planning and Budget Committee considered the following 7 resolutions. One, UW Green Bay brought forth a resolution to request authority to enter into a lease with Brown County for office and laboratory space at the Brown County STEM Innovation Center, a building that will be constructed on the UW Green Bay campus. The facility will house various tenants such as the Einstein Project, a private nonprofit organization dedicated to the development and distribution of STEM education materials, UW Extension agriculture and horticultural programs, Brown County Land and Water Conservation Offices, and UW Green Bay's Mechanical Engineering Program. Resolution 13C, brought by UW Green Bay also, requests authority to rename UW Marinette, University of Wisconsin Green Bay Marinette Campus. UW Manitowoc, University of Wisconsin Green Bay Manitowoc Campus. UW Sheboygan, University of Wisconsin Green Bay Sheboygan Campus. These changes reflect the integration of the institution with its new regional partners. Resolution 13D, brought by UW Milwaukee, requests authority to rename UW Washington County, University of Wisconsin Milwaukee at Washington County, and UW Waukesha, University of Wisconsin Milwaukee at Waukesha. These changes also reflect the consideration of the branch campuses with UW Milwaukee. Resolution 13E, brought by UW Platteville, requests authority to rename UW Baraboo Sauk County, University of Wisconsin Platteville Baraboo Sauk County, aka UW Platteville Baraboo Sauk County, and UW Richland, University of Wisconsin Platteville Richland, aka UW Platteville Richland. These changes will enhance recruiting and marketing efforts with a cohesive approach to growing the 3 campuses. Resolution 13F, brought by UW Stevens Point, requests authority to rename UW Marathon County, University of Wisconsin Stevens Point, Wausau, and UW Marshfield Wood County, University of Wisconsin Stevens Point at Marshfield. These changes will improve the branding and marketing capabilities of the campus partnerships. Resolution 13G, brought by UW Whitewater, requests authority to rename UW Rock County, University of Wisconsin Whitewater at Rock County. These changes reflect the restructuring that joined the 2 campuses. Resolution 13J, brought by UW System on behalf of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, requests authority to increase the budget for UW-Madison Hoofer's boat dock and deck replacement project with gift funds. The bids for the project came in higher than expected due to increased costs of site utilities and water improvements, as well as the saturated construction market. Finally, there was a report of the Vice President, Alex Rowe, reported on the State Building Commission approvals, and the committee then met in closed session to consider the naming of facilities at UW Stevens Point and UW Stout. With that, I'll move resolution 13B, C, D, E, F, G, and J.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and thank you, Regent Stile. I'll now call upon Regent Hall to present a report of the Research, Economic Development, and Innovation Committee. Regent Hall, the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you. The READY Committee reviewed and approved the minutes of the June 7th, 2018 meeting held at UW Milwaukee. Committee members heard about foreign trade, entrepreneurship, and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership. First, let me tell you about the exciting announcement from the Tommy G. Thompson Center, which chancellors, please pay attention. Director Ryan Owens announced a call for faculty research award applications that address prison to work initiatives or the future of transportation in Wisconsin. Individual grant awards can range from $5,000 to $500,000. These grants will fund facility research across the UW system that help leaders address pressing policy challenges. Applications are due by 5 p.m. September 21st. In addition, the center is offering speaker grants for Thompson Talks during the 2018-19 academic year. These grants may be applied for by student organizations, faculty, or departments of any UW system school outside of UW-Madison to bring in speakers who will promote local discussions of leadership and policy-making solutions in Wisconsin and beyond. The deadline for the next round of these grants is October 1st, 2018. For detailed information, please visit the UW-Madison Tommy G. Thompson Center website. So, opportunities, schools. Also exciting is the news regarding foreign trade. Katie Sinat, WEDC Vice President of International Business Development, provided an update on a growing list of initiatives and programs aimed to increase foreign direct investment opportunities within the state. In 2017, foreign trade equated to $22.3 billion, nearly 7% of Wisconsin's GDP, which is $324 billion. To increase exports, WEDC collaborates with the university and state businesses. Examples of this collaboration include partnerships with cutting-edge academic programs in aerospace, advanced manufacturing, biohealth, and water technology, among others. Just to highlight one of many collaborations underway, UW-Milwaukee and the Zuckerberg Institute for Water Research are working on a formal agreement to have the Ben Gurion University in Israel become part of the Water Equipment and Policy Center. Finally, the committee heard 3 presenters explain how the university and state of Wisconsin are researching and working to grow entrepreneurship. One, UW-Madison professor John Eckhart discussed a research project funded by the Kauffman Foundation that identifies the predictive characteristics of entrepreneurs, successful innovators, and business startups. Secondly, UW System Executive Director Mark Lang explained how the Institute for Business and Entrepreneurship is looking at new data sources to recognize key trade sectors, identify high-potential companies, and connect local economies. And lastly, Aaron Hagar, WEDC Vice President of Entrepreneurship and Innovation, highlighted several entrepreneurial programs, including IdeaVance, which recently received global recognition for its innovative approach to lean startup from the University Industry Innovation Network based in Europe. So if you weren't in my committee session, you see you missed a treat. President Bailey, that concludes my report.
Thank you so much, Regent Hall. I'll now call upon Regent Milner to provide a report of the Audit Committee.
Don't make me defend the Audit Committee again. Beware of the auditors. We also had a very effective meeting. Our Chief Audit Executive, Lori Storz, presented 2 reports, progress to date on the fiscal year 2019 audit plan, and management's progress to date on the audit comments and response plans included in the audit reports. She indicated the office continues to receive strong cooperation from management. We did note that there were a large number of unresolved information technology security audit comments, and everyone involved pledged to continue to work hard on resolving those issues. Ms. Storz also reported that she has been working with President Cross and Regent Greeby to examine the needs of stakeholders and compliance with our wide-ranging charter. And toward that end, we heard from our General Counsel, Quinn Williams, regarding the ethical issues that we are charged with overseeing. There's been a new employee ethics and public records management handout, which has been prepared and disseminated. And Attorney Williams indicated that it's going very well. The training's been going very well. There's a call out to the hotline for concerned employees. And he reiterated the commitment to provide our faculty and staff with the awareness and the tools that they need to properly identify and resolve potential ethical issues. Vice President for Administration Rob Kramer and Associate Vice President Ruth Anderson provided background information on enterprise risk management and the creation of a system-wide risk committee. As you may know, we do not have a single risk officer. That responsibility is shared. And my colleagues on the board expressed strong interest that it would be helpful to have this information presented to the full board when the work of the system-wide risk committee is complete. Catherine Mayer, our Associate Vice President for Information Security, provided an update on a new policy there. For employees whose affiliation has changed, we're talking here about retired faculty, sponsored retirees, and so on. also the use of personal email communications with university accounts. Ms. Meyer explained that access is dependent on each staff member's role and will be modified as the roles change. So we have some better definition in that area. Vice President for Finance Sean Nelson reported on our response to the Legislative Audit Bureau's report 1814 on the plans to move forward. There's follow-up in both areas, foundation relationships, and then again, information security concerns. And we will hear more about that at the Audit Committee in a future meeting. Our committee then moved into closed session to discuss information security findings and responses as permitted by statute. This concludes my remarks, Mr. President.
Thank you, Regent Milner. We'll go ahead and move on to item number 8 on the agenda. Before we have Regent Atwell provide a report of the Business and Finance Committee, I know there's 2 other quick notes. Regent Stahl, I think you have a recusal you wanted to mention?
Yes, I'll continue to recuse myself from contracts between third parties in the system for the duration of my campaign. So items D, E, F, and G, I'll recuse. And then if we could vote on H separately, that'd be appreciated.
Thank you, Regent Stahl. Regent Evers.
Yes, and I apologize for not getting in earlier. I was asleep at the switch, I guess. But because of the campaign, I will be also recusing myself from all potential conflicts, and I will not be voting going forward on any of the recommendations of the Business and Finance Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Evers. Now, Regent Atwell, please come forward with your report.
Thank you. We approved the minutes of the June 7th meeting. We received a report from UW System Shared Services about their framework and strategy for helping to streamline operational services to system campuses in an effort to make them more cost-effective, consistent. And so Rob Kramer and then Steve Wildeck, who's really undertaking that, gave the majority of the report, and we received that, I think, with a great deal of interest. We approved the semi-annual status report on large, vital information technology projects as required by Wisconsin statute. That report was quite extensive and was given by Stephen Hopper, who's our new UW System Administration Associate Vice President and CIO. He reviewed the status on 12 different projects underway. The majority of the projects are on schedule, scope, and budget. And the concerns, any of the projects that he was concerned about were brought to light and noted, and we were given good update on. And that will be submitted to the Joint Committee on Information Policy and Technology. We approved the U.S. System contractual agreement extension for 1 year with Fox World Travel, and that's pending some further work within the system on the direction we want to go long-term there. We approved a new contract with Eaton Corporation from UW-Milwaukee. In this contract, the university will work with Eaton on prototype distributed sensor network and analytics platform. I think I sort of understood what it was. The results will be included in a report to the U.S. Air Force Civil Engineering Center, and it's a 4-year pass-through agreement with Eaton in the amount of $1,293,000. We approved UW-Madison contractual agreement with Learfield Communications. This is an initiative that connects corporate marketing opportunities with non-athletic areas of the campus, and it's a 7-year term with a potential $15 million over the life of the contract. It's not really known at this time, but that was what we discussed. We approved UW-Madison contractual agreement with Deere Company. This is regarding researching efficiency gains of off-road powertrains. It's a 5-year term with a potential $1 million over the life of the contract. We also approved, as is required, a salary range exceeding 75% of the president's salary for the Dean of School of Business at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. That was approved with Regent Style voted no, I believe, right? Or did you want to? We received a report from the State of Wisconsin Investment Board, Mike Jacobs and Trish Riopel, regarding the funds that were transferred from the system to to be administered by the State of Wisconsin Investment Board. It's new in the life of that arrangement. Everyone seems pleased with it. It involves total fund assets of $577 million. Some of the, $420 million of it's invested long-term, and $157 million remains in cash as we work through the process of transitioning it to its ultimate investment strategy. We received a report of quarterly gifts, grants, and contracts report. The final report for fiscal year 2018, $1.5 billion, and that's up $90 million from last year. And then we received several items noted by Vice President Rob Kramer on the UW Systems Vehicle Self-Insurance Program and on matters involving workers' compensation. So consistent with the committee's action, can I move to the resolution? Or
You certainly can, and if your first motion could be for items A through G. So
my first motion will be through items A through G.
Correct.
Okay, consistent with the committee's action, I move the adoption of resolutions A through G.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Same sign.
Motion passes, and thank you.
Thank you.
Now, back to you, Regent Atwell. For resolution, Regents in your packets, it's I.2.H, and it's Part H on your agenda. Go ahead, Regent
So I move
Atwell.
to approve resolution I2H.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Thank you, Regent Atwell.
Do we need to approve G? Also move the adoption of resolution 12G, UW-Madison's contract with Lear and Company. Does that require full?
May I have a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes
We abstain.
Thank you.
with 2 abstentions. Thank you, Regent Atwell. Now we'll turn to Regent Milner for a report of the Education Committee.
Thank you, President Bailing. Now, although I appreciate the enthusiasm and esprit of my fellow chairs, our Education Committee is actually the most interesting and the most exciting. All right, first, we heard a report from Interim Vice President Karen Schmidt. Dr. Schmidt provided an update regarding both the UW System Math Initiative and the UW Colleges and UW Extension Restructuring Initiative. Notably, right after my report today, Vice President Schmidt will also provide the full board with a presentation on the Restructuring Initiative. I want to give deviate from my script for a moment to give my thanks to both Vice President Karen Schmidt and to Laura Dunek about the work that's being done by them and by their staff over the summer. This has been a very busy summer with these initiatives and also the work that we're doing with the schools of education. So I want to say a special thank you to you in front of the whole board. Second, the committee unanimously approved 2 degree programs at UW Green Bay. These included a Bachelor of Science in Nursing and an Executive Master's of Business Administration. The nursing degree will expand the capacity of UW Green Bay to meet student demand for a high-quality nursing degree at a reasonable tuition cost. And through its new executive MBA program, UW Green Bay responds to market demand for advanced, innovative training for regional business and community leaders. Also at the time, they explained to us that they had worked hand in hand with businesses in the Green Bay community to arrive at this particular degree. That's something that we've been asking to happen with some of these new programs. Next, UW Stevens Point received approval for 3 undergraduate degree programs. In response to accreditation recommendations from the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business, the campus will expand 3 concentrations to major degree programs. The majors include a Bachelor of Science in Finance, a Bachelor of Science in Management, and a Bachelor of Science in Marketing. These programs will enroll existing students and do not require additional faculty or staff because the necessary coursework is already being offered on the campus. Next, the committee approved 3 resolutions in support of ongoing activities of our campuses. First, in response to a supplement funding, excuse me, in response to a supplemental funding proffer of $3.7 million from the Vilas Trust Fund, the committee approved a request from UW-Madison to spend the proffer in support of a major construction project for its chemistry building. Second, the Education Committee approved the corrected 2018 report on faculty promotions, tenure designations, and other changes in status. Thus, an error of fact was corrected within the UW Extension Faculty Promotion Report for 2018. Third, UW River Falls submitted for its first reading its revised mission statement. The Faculty Senate unanimously approved the revised mission statement on August 1st, 2018. The final approval will be requested from the Board of Regents at our October meeting. This will facilitate success for UW Green Bay, for UW River Falls during the campus reaccreditation visit by the Higher Learning Commission on October 15th through 17th, 2018. Finally, the committee heard 2 presentations. First, a panel of education deans completed a presentation entitled "Building a Strong Teacher Workforce in Wisconsin." The deans included Dr. Carmen Manning from UW-Eau Claire, Dr. Marcy Wyckoff-Horn from UW-La Crosse, Dr. Diana Hess from UW-Madison, and Dr. Alan Shoho from UW-Milwaukee. This was the last in a series of 4 presentations, all of which advanced the process developed by the Education Committee for considering issues related to licensure and teacher education in the state of Wisconsin. Notably, all 4 presentations were videotaped and are publicly available on the Board of Regents website. And I encourage you, if you haven't had an opportunity, entertain yourself some evening by tuning into those. They've been very interesting and they're important in the work that we're planning for the following year. Finally, Dr. Carleen Van de Zande, sorry, Dr. Van de Zande, delivered a presentation, an excellent, I should say, presentation entitled UW Systems Program Array Update. This is something that we've requested, and this is something that will be an annual feature on our committee. Every year, the Associate Vice President for Academic Programs and Educational Innovation provides an update to the Education Committee on the UW Systems Academic Program Array. In her report, Dr. Van de Zande described the growth and elimination of academic degree programs, as well as the expansion of distant education and collaborative degree programs from 2013 to 2018. Just as an aside, this was an excellent presentation that answered a lot of questions that we've had over time regarding both the increases of programs and decreases of programs and in which categories they fall. Finally, I move the following resolutions for adoption by the board. Resolution 1.1.c sub 1, approval of the Bachelor of Science in Nursing at UW Green Bay. Resolution 1.1.c sub 2, approval of the Masters of Business Administration at UW Green Bay. Resolution 1.1.d sub 1, approval of the Bachelor of Science in Finance at UW Stevens Point. Resolution 1.1.d sub 2, approval of the Bachelor of Science in Management at UW-Stevens Point. Resolution 1.1.d sub 3, approval of the Bachelor of Science in Marketing at UW-Stevens Point. Resolution 1.1.e, approval of the UW-Madison's request in response to the supplemental proffer from the Vilas Trust Fund. Resolution 1.1 sub point F, approval of a correction to the 2018 report on faculty promotions, tenure designations, and other changes of status.
May I have a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Regent Milner. Next, we'll turn to item number 10 on the agenda. The board will recall we approved the UW colleges and UW restructuring. We committed that we would bring this back to the board as a standing item for the next 6 meetings. Today, we're at our 5th meeting, and we'll have a report today from Karen Schmidt, Vice President of Academic and Student Affairs, and Carleen Van de Zand, Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs. Thank you for joining us, and good morning.
On November 9th, 2017, this body, the UW Board of Regents, approved a resolution to restructure UW colleges and UW Extension. The goal of the restructuring was to ensure that the UW system would continue to serve students and communities by expanding access to higher education, maintaining affordable tuition, and increasing opportunities for students despite the enrollment and financial challenges brought by our state's changing population demographics. Today, I'm pleased to report that the UW system has successfully met your charge. Since the board met in June, the UW System Restructuring Project has achieved some of its most significant milestones. The most notable was the June 28th approval of the UW System's application to restructure UW colleges and UW Extension by the Higher Learning Commission, which we refer to as HLC. HLC is the regional accrediting body for all of the UW institutions. With the HLC approval in place, the UW System Restructuring moved forward on schedule. On July 1st, 2018, the 13 two-year campuses, formerly known as UW colleges, were joined as branch campuses with 7 of the UW System's 4-year comprehensive and research institutions. And the 4 primary divisions of UW Extension were joined with UW Madison and UW System Administration. On July 12th, the HLC notified UW System that as a result of restructuring, the separate accreditation status of UW colleges ceased as of July 2nd, 2018. As we convene here today, thousands of new and continuing students enrolled on the 13 two-year branch campuses across the state are preparing to launch into their fall semester classes as new members of the student bodies of their UW receiving institutions. Personally, I have an inside source on the student experience at one campus. My 18-year-old nephew is a new freshman at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point at Wausau this fall, and he reports that he had a smooth transition through the application, admission, enrollment, and orientation process there. They even gave him a couple of nice scholarships. When I talked to him this weekend about how things were going, he was way more excited about the biology course he had registered for than about the name of the new campus, or the new name for the campus. His helicopter mom, my sister, has confirmed these facts. So now to share some of the campus community excitement about the new academic year, let's hear from the chancellors.
This is really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to create something new and something profound for this region. And that's why I am so delighted and so proud of all the efforts that have gone into creating this new university from the 3 institutions. Our future is very bright, and I believe that we will serve the region very well.
The University of Wisconsin Board of Regents decided last November to join the campuses of UW Eau Claire and UW Barron County. Immediately, our faculty and staff students wanted to get to know each other. UW Eau Claire and UW Eau Claire Barron County will be serving northwestern Wisconsin with excellence for many years to come.
The day after the Board of Regents approved the restructuring, we went to the Rock County campus because we wanted to meet with the students, the faculty, and the staff and learn about their dreams and learn about their culture. And what we quickly discovered is that we have many similarities. Our laser focus on student success, our commitment to serving our communities, and our deep passion for making a difference in whatever we do.
We're going to be joining with three great colleges, UW Marinette, Manitowoc, and Sheboygan. This is a fantastic opportunity for this part of the state of Wisconsin. But one of the most important things this does is it gives us an opportunity to provide access to a lot of different students in this region. And our goal is to give students in this region and everywhere else in Wisconsin who want to join us here opportunities to engage in all of our degree programs from the associate degree up through our graduate programs.
UW Milwaukee is delighted to join with UW Waukesha and UW Washington County. With a dual mission of access and research, we're building a partnership for a better future for our students, region, and state. For our restructured UWM, a top priority is student success, which includes providing numerous pathways, programs, and offerings to strengthen the pipeline from high schools, technical colleges, and two-year colleges.
Every once in a great while, opportunities present themselves. The joining of UW Richland and UW Baraboo Sauk County with the University of Wisconsin-Platteville is one of those sorts of opportunities. Each of these institutions have been contributing to the quality of life in this region of the state for years. Now, as times change, we have the opportunity to continue to contribute in significant ways to the quality of life in this region of the state. The educational programming that we deliver, the opportunity and the access to that education that we provide to the citizens of this region of the state are remarkable.
We see this as complete integration of what we're doing in higher education in this part of the state, because we know that we're stronger together than if we stand alone. So this is a time for change. This is the time to think about things differently. This is the time to be involved. This is a new chapter in higher education in our state. So I invite you to be part of the conversation that is occurring on all of our campuses. I invite you to enroll in the class. I invite you to help us create the future for our state and our region.
UW-Madison faculty and staff are happy to welcome Cooperative Extension and Wisconsin Public Television and Radio back to our campus. These institutions provide important links between the education and research done at UW system schools and Wisconsin residents, no matter how far away they live from a campus. We all have a mission to share knowledge, connect to the whole state, and make life better here.
The UW system's success in meeting the major milestones of restructuring was due to the exemplary leadership of these chancellors and to the exceptional engagement, hard work, and dedication of more than 1,800 people to date who have participated in the planning, implementation, and project management activities related to the restructuring at the system and regional levels. On behalf of the UW System Administration, I'd like to invite board members to join me in a round of applause to express our gratitude to the chancellors and to thank the many UW campus and UW system leaders, the UW faculty, staff, and students, and the community leaders and community members across the state who have contributed to the UW system restructuring process over the past 9 months. However, we must be mindful that the restructuring is not yet complete. The process of restructuring continues in this HLC Phase 1 year. I will now ask Associate Vice President Carleen Vandizanti to report on the HLC's approval of the change of structure and on the UW system planning for the focused HLC visits to the receiving institutions, which will be scheduled for later this fall.
As we've already heard, the UW system submitted a 1,500-page application to the Higher Learning Commission in mid-January for review by the accreditor and the Department of Education. On June 28th, the board of the Higher Learning Commission voted to approve our UW system application for the restructuring of the UW colleges to become branch campuses of 7 four-year institutions. Some people asked, why is accreditation important for this? Accreditation helps determine if an institution meets or exceeds minimum standards of quality. It helps students determine institutions of quality for their enrollment. It assists institutions in determining acceptability of transfer credits from one institution to another. And its purpose in meeting those standards qualifies the institution to be able to distribute financial aid. June 29th, we received the outstanding news that the Higher Learning Commission approved our request to restructure the UW colleges. July 1st, 2018, we formally entered Phase 1 of the restructuring. Phase 1 is going to be from July 1, 2018 until July 1, 2019. Phase 1 is characterized as the transition year when faculty, staff, students, and curricular programs and operations of the branch campus come under the administrative authority of the receiving four-year institutions and their chancellors. A memorandum of understanding will guide the responsibilities and services at both the receiving institutions and as the remaining UW College's Administrative Service Office continues to provide some services. A special thanks to the central administrative staff at the colleges and extension who serve this coming year in an administrative service office capacity. The MOU covers such areas as administrative oversight, admissions and registration, assessment of student learning, auxiliaries, budget and planning, curriculum, facilities, financial aid, governance, HR, oversight of instruction, student support service, and a few more items. During Phase 1, the 7 institutions will work with their newly acquired branch campuses to make a series of decisions to continue to integrate the work of the branch campuses into the existing practices, policies, routines, and culture of the receiving institutions. During Phase 1, the receiving institution will examine policies to see if changes are needed to incorporate the work of the branch campus. Our goal is to ensure that students continue to be supported and can continue their programs at the branch campus. Also, during Phase 1, financial allocations as presented at the June Board of Regents meeting of the UW system, from the UW system to the receiving institutions will be administered according to the budget report reviewed at the June Board of Regents meeting. In July and August, the receiving institution gained approval from the Higher Learning Commission to offer the Associate of Arts and Science or the Bachelor of Applied Arts and Science degree as the curriculum from the colleges transitions to the receiving institutions. What will things look like this fall? Students, faculty, staff, and administration at the branch campuses will have a new identity as members of the receiving institutions community. Branch campus students are able to continue their academic programs, and the course schedule will remain in place for the branch campus for this transition year. UW College's faculty and staff work hard to get the 18-19 academic year schedule in place for students at the branch campus. Some faculty will be members of newly established colleges at the receiving institutions, and other faculty will join existing academic departments. All faculty, students, and staff at the branch campuses will be joined to shared governance structures at the receiving institution or have a plan to transition to those structures. The HLC requires a follow-up visit after 6 months of the start of a branch campus. This fall, we will start preparing for that 6-month review. This review will be focused on the implementation of the branch campus model at the receiving institutions. UW System will submit a combined report to the HLC. The 4-year institutions will submit a written statement about their progress in implementing the branch campus plan, which includes information about how the branch campus meets accreditation criteria, administrative oversight, planning and budgeting, faculty qualifications and hiring, student support services, the curriculum, and assessment of student learning. In early spring 2019, a two-person team from the Higher Learning Commission will visit UW System to talk with representatives from the 7 receiving institutions about their branch campuses, and a follow-up report will be issued at the end of spring semester. I would like to add my personal thanks to the academic planners in my office and the accreditation liaison officers at each of the 7 receiving institutions and at UW-Madison for their hard work to assure compliance at their institutions. This work continues to be supported by functional teams made up of specialists from around the system with specific areas of focus. They are guided by system and our board policies and federal compliance regulations. This ongoing work requires nimble decision-making with the Wisconsin idea, student success, and our mission as for God. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes our report, and we'll be happy to take questions if the President wishes.
Thank you. Regents, do we have any questions for our presenters? Regent Klein.
Yes, thanks for this excellent report, and I'm very thankful that the Higher Learning Commission approved and understand the work that would have been involved in that. And thank you to the chancellors for accepting this additional responsibility and all the work that went with integrating and making this smooth. So good work all the way around. Now that we've cleared at least the first regulatory hurdle, it seems like, I know there's another review in 6 months, but are we going to at some point get a report on facility usage? Because as my understanding, and I haven't seen all the 2-year campuses, but some of them are, you know, large and there are structures on them, and how are they going to be used in the new era? The other thing that eventually I think we should understand is sort of the cost-saving component that might be available. I realize there's going to be probably a period of time, but wondering about the specific synergies for each campus and when we might be able to hear some of that. I know we've got one more report, maybe.
Correct. We'll have one more report at the next meeting. President Cross, do you want to speak a little bit to the first 2 questions?
I'll try, but before I do, if I, and I'll respond to those, Regent Klein. I really want to personally thank the chancellors and the provost and the staff that worked on this, as Carleen led, and you as well, Carleen, led much of this. And there were questions about the timing of this. Could we do this in the time we set forth? And some of you expressed that doubt as well. And I must say that I would love to have said with confidence, oh, we're going to meet this timeline, no problem. But I also had concerns about that. And I shouldn't have, because of the character that is expressed in these people and their ability to do that work. I shouldn't have, so shame on me. But I'm really proud to be affiliated with such fine, hardworking people who are committed to serving students and the faculty and staff on these campuses. It was amazing to me how warmly you embraced them, and you made them feel like they were part of your institution and wanted to do that from the beginning. And that's just really impressive. And so before I walk away from that, I have to say thank you so much for doing that. That was just wonderful, and your leadership makes me proud to be a colleague, so thank you. The other part of your question is, we have said from the beginning on the cost issue, it's intuitive for us to realize that by eliminating an administrative function, at some level there'll be cost savings. How much, I don't know. And why am I saying that? Strategic mergers and acquisitions that have been successful have been predominantly done for the purpose of strategic advantage. So when you merge a corporate entity, if you're trying to capture their money, it generally doesn't work all that well. If you're trying to expand your market or improve some manufacturing processes by acquiring that, you gain strategic advantage. The purpose of this merger was not primarily to save money, though I believe that will happen. The purpose was primarily to gain strategic advantage, to preserve a couple of these campuses, and to bring opportunity for new programming into these communities and to improve transfers. So that's our initial agenda. Now, I believe that within a couple of years, we will be able to articulate some savings based on a cost baseline that we have established at this point. But it'll take us a little while to figure that out. And we're working from the premise that our purpose is to make sure we expand opportunity and preserve these campuses, knowing that one of the secondary outcomes is to save money. And your other question dealt with a report back on some of these. Am I recalling that correctly, Tracy or Regent Klein?
I'm curious, I respect what you're saying, Mr. President. I guess the question is facility usage.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm getting some questions out there as to, these I don't know all of them. The campuses are fairly large. And so how are they going to be used in the New World Order? And what are the synergies? So that might be a campus-specific explanation. And I thought it was very helpful, just by the way, when you had the chancellors discuss what they were going to do a couple of meetings ago.
I believe that is a campus decision, and what we will do with that suggestion is come back in a few months and see if there's some information on that facility stuff. I think that's actually a very good question.
Agreed, and thank you, Regent Klein. Regent Milner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. President Cross, you just mentioned the words cost issue. And as we track the funding, a component of that is what is of the back office functions, of the administrative functions, what is sent to the campuses and what is retained by system administration. And I've been following that. There was a great deal of information that was provided, and I much appreciate that. But I hope that component will be addressed at a subsequent meeting also.
I'm quite sure it will, in that I believe the Business and Finance Committee heard a report from the Shared Services Group. So some of those activities will become the foundation for shared services as a part of the core agenda. So sorting some of that out, that transition, as you heard Carlene speak to, the central administration within UW colleges, how that becomes the foundation for the future of shared services is yet to be fully fleshed out, but that's what we're working on.
Both very good questions. Thank you. Regent Milner.
First of all, you all understand now why I complimented this team for the work that they've been doing this summer. It's been extraordinary. So congratulations, and also congratulations to the chancellors who've been working so hard and so well with the colleges. I have really a simple question. Would you please review again, it went quickly, about the faculty placement? You talked about where you mentioned where the different, some are going to departments and and I didn't understand, some are going to college. Please explain that again. I didn't completely understand that, because that's one of the personnel issues that I've been interested in following.
I believe it was a couple months ago, we had 2 new colleges approved. One was at UW Milwaukee and one at UW Whitewater. So the branch campus faculty will be placed in those colleges. That's the colleges. The other faculty will have an affiliation with an academic department or a division in the other receiving institutions.
Thank you. That's the piece that I didn't understand.
Thank you, Regent Milner. Any other questions, Regents? Seeing none, let's give our presenters a round of applause, and thank you. Next, we'll hear a report on the progress being made in developing policies related to personnel files and reference checks. At our June meeting, this board unanimously approved a resolution calling for the UW system to develop or modify human resource policies to ensure a more robust hiring and reference check process related to sexual harassment. We ask that it be implemented at all UW institutions. To provide us with an update and draft documents, UW Systems General Counsel Quinn Williams. Quinn, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Regent President Bailing, President Cross, Vice President Peterson, members of the Board of Regents. As you know, on June 7th, 2018, the board adopted Resolution 11038 on employee personnel files and reference checks, which required the development or modification of certain human resource policies for all UW institutions regarding documenting sexual harassment allegations and investigations, maintaining personnel files and conducting reference checks, and exchanging personnel files between all UW institutions and state of Wisconsin agencies. Pursuant to this direction, we have developed the draft policies being presented today in near final form prior to seeking additional feedback and consultation from shared governance groups and other relevant stakeholders in anticipation of implementation in January of 2019. By way of background, the issue of appropriately documenting in personnel files and communicating during reference checks violations of sexual violence and sexual harassment policies by employees of academic institutions has been a historically challenging issue both within Wisconsin and across the nation. Colloquially known as passing the harasser or passing the trash, this issue has received appropriately increased scrutiny both in Wisconsin and across the country as a result of the Me Too movement. K-12, with similar trust responsibilities over vulnerable populations as we have here at UW, has been the first educational enterprise to aggressively address this issue. First nationally with the federal Every Student Succeeds Act in 2015, which prohibits K-12 employers aiding and abetting of sexual abuse, and in Wisconsin as part of the recently enacted Pass the Harasser Law, which prohibits K-12 employers from assisting school employees in obtaining a new job in any other school if they know or should reasonably have reasonable suspicion to believe they have committed a sex offense against a minor or a pupil. On the reference check front, California just this year passed AB 2770, which provides an explicit defense against defamation claims for all employers who respond to questions of sexual harassment during reference checks. This new law is comparable to Wisconsin's broad general reference check immunities provided under WISSTAT 895.487, which provides immunity for references given in good faith and only subjects employers to liability when knowingly providing false information or providing a reference maliciously. This problem is pernicious, and we are not alone. A cursory search online reveals innumerable other states and academic institutions that have experienced similar situations with employees gaining employment in subsequent academic institutions after being found to have engaged in sexual harassment or sexual violence, and without the subsequent knowledge of that receiving institution, including University of Southern Florida, Northern Colorado, Texas Tech, University of Chicago, Princeton, UNC, the Berklee College of Music, Yale, Columbia, Minnesota, and many more. This is a significant employee and student safety issue as well, supported by newly published research. The newly published National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine report entitled Sexual Harassment of Women, Climate, Culture, and Consequences in Academic Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, a link of which is provided in your materials, reflects the results of research on sexual harassment against women to determine what could be done to prevent it in the academic settings in science, engineering, and medicine, where female employees reported experiencing sexual harassment during their employment at rates of 58% over their careers, second highest behind the military. I strongly encourage you to read this well-researched and thoughtful study. Following the June 2018 Board of Regents meeting, a work group was created to consider issues and draft the attached policies before you today. The work group, many of who are here today and are potentially going to be trapped on the island that will become Madison apparently after the rainstorms today. From UW Eau Claire, Affirmative Action Director and Title IX Coordinator Teresa O'Halloran. From UW Oshkosh, Chief of Staff Kate McQuillan. We also have on the team UW Madison Title IX Coordinator Lauren Hasselbacher and Senior HR Specialist Megan Dazuba. They're in the audience today. UW Milwaukee Associate Director of Human Resources Karen Massetti Moran. From UW System Administration, Employment Relations Specialist Rich Thal. And from the UW Office of General Counsel, UW System Administration Office of General Counsel, Program Assistant Andrew Probowski. law clerk and third-year law student at UW Wisconsin, Neil Schlavinsky, and senior legal counsel Wade Harrison. The work group worked collaboratively on a very tight timeline to get us where we are today, and is here today for this important issue. The work group performed a current state assessment of personnel file and reference check policies at 37 different institutions, including all UW system institutions, all Big Ten institutions, other large systems, including SUNY, Texas, University of California, California State University, and additional universities including Georgia, North Carolina, and Virginia, as well as the Department of Administration in Wisconsin and K-12 institutions throughout the state. As part of that review, the work group determined most of the institutions reviewed did not have written policies that directly addressed documenting sexual violence or sexual harassment allegations or investigations within personnel files, conducting or responding to reference checks regarding allegations and investigations of sexual violence or sexual harassment, or sharing and or transferring personnel files between institutions. However, a number of the large institutions are currently or in the process of reviewing and or updating their sexual violence and sexual harassment personnel or reference check policies. And those same large institutions were very interested in reviewing both the UW System Work Group's research and a copy of the draft and final policies we implement, highlighting the national leadership role that the Board of Regents is taking on this issue. First, in your materials, you will have a draft of the UW System UPS Operational Policy TC1 regarding recruitment policies and reference checks, which requires that there be consistent disclosure across the enterprise to hiring institutions, both within the UW system and for external employers, of violations of sexual violence and sexual harassment policies. The policy would also require UW institutions to ask about sexual violence and sexual harassment prior to hiring any final candidates. The draft policy clarifies that potentially adverse information is not an automatic disqualifier and that any disclosures will be weighed as part of the evidence-based hiring process. Additionally, the draft policy does not ask about or require disclosure of unsubstantiated allegations of sexual violence or sexual harassment. The only exception is in the instances where an employee leaves during an active investigation into allegations of sexual violence or sexual harassment. Overall, the draft policy provides reasonable minimum requirements for consistency across the enterprise while providing institutions ample flexibility for implementation. Draft UW System UPS Operational Policy HR 13, which is regarding personnel files, standardizes the content of personnel files across the enterprise and requires their transfer between all UW institutions and state agencies upon hire, defines when and with whom personnel files are shared, and ensures appropriate documentation of sexual violence and sexual harassment within the personnel file. The policy also expressly doesn't do some things. It doesn't prejudice hiring decisions by providing access to the entire personnel file before hire. It doesn't include investigative materials in personnel files, and it doesn't change who has access to the personnel files. Further, it doesn't include documentation of unsubstantiated allegations of sexual violence and sexual harassment. The work group also identified other recommendations that fall outside the direct scope of the board's resolution, but were nevertheless important for these proposed policies to be ultimately successful. These include moving to the creation of a uniform electronic recording storage for personnel files, consistent documentation and procedures across the enterprise of sexual violence and harassment allegations and investigations, and this will be addressed in the through the concurrent work of the President's Sexual Violence Harassment Priorities Working Group that you're going to hear from next after me. Researching and developing systems for employee categories not covered by these policies, for graduate students, student hourlies, temporary employees. Developing implementation guides and providing training to supervisors on these policies. Completing all investigations of sexual violence and sexual harassment, even if the employee leaves during an active investigation. Consulting policy stakeholders, including shared governance. and a regular assessment of policy and best practices during implementation. Following today, the work group, after this meeting, will work with campuses, shared governance groups, and other stakeholders during the consultation and review phase between now and November. The work group will collect that feedback and lay the groundwork for training and implementation in January of 2019. We would also propose to bring these final policies to the board to update you on progress prior to implementation. Thank you, and I and members of the work group can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Quinn. Regents, questions? I think Regent Klein, you had a question right out of the gate.
Well, thank you, Quinn. This is great work, and thank you to the work group. And I think it's a tremendous step forward. I like the idea we're going to be consistent across the UW system. That's what we're going to have. We're going to have a consistent policy, correct, Quinn?
That is. We're also working with Madison to ensure they're going to be in parallel adopting an identical HR design policy, which will have the exact same provisions to ensure consistency across the enterprise. But yes.
I think it's really good work. I guess the two things I would just mention for your consideration are, if it's unsubstantiated but repeated, it's relevant, and you can put it in the personnel file and say it was not determined to have risen to the level. But if somebody is repeatedly engaging in conduct, it ought to be referenced and known. And then secondly, I hope we're going to use liberal use of releases if we need to, because the information, if somebody lies on the form and says, no, I've never had, that ought to be grounds for immediate dismissal. And if we have to go back to another institution to verify, and there's some foot dragging, which there might be, we ought to insist on releases from the person so that we can get to the bottom of what went on. I think it's a big issue for this board because of our oversight responsibilities. We see this in the headline all the time. So whatever you can do to make sure that we get this information as through our HR departments is really good work, and thank you.
Yeah, and as it relates to non-findings being included in personnel files, that was an item of much discussion, not only amongst the work group, but also amongst some of our friends at the Department of Personnel Management. There was a misperception that somehow by not including those items in the personnel file, they wouldn't be captured. Well, they are being captured as part of our Title IX responsibilities, and institutions are committed to ensuring that that information is exchanged throughout the hiring process and as you evaluate different allegations coming through. But I'm sure that will continue to be an item of discussion.
Thank you. Quinn, one question that I had that had come up during our board meeting in June, and that was they wanted the working group in your office to look at consistency with other Big Ten schools, with other schools in the Midwest. Tell us just a little bit about, as you got into that research, what did you find?
Well, what we found is that as part of the Me Too movement, and this being an emerging issue, there is wide inconsistency across Big Ten institutions and across large institutions across the country and how this is treated. This is an issue that everybody is wrestling with right now in real time. Again, if you look at and just do a Google search of this issue right now, you'll see Minnesota, Ohio State, Indiana, all of our Big Ten partners and institutions are dealing with this issue. And so they are right now in real time trying to address this. Generally speaking, they will capture the same types of information in personnel files. Where I think we are entering an interesting area is with respect to reference checks in particular. That's an issue that they are now just wrestling with and running into as they hire on professors or other faculty who have been accused of sexual violence or harassment at other institutions, and it hasn't been either appropriately documented or disclosed upon subsequent hiring at those institutions.
Thank you. Regent Jones.
I just want to offer my support for the very important work that this group is concluding now. We need to step up and stop this vicious cycle of passing a harasser from one institution to another. The innovative policy we're discussing here, which may be the first of its kind in the country, I think thoughtfully balances the due process rights of the accused with our responsibility to keep sexual harassers and sexual predators out of our workforce and off our campuses. I applaud the outstanding work by this group.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Jones. Other regents? Regent Stahl.
I also applaud the work. I have a question on your findings. You mentioned California state law that was adjusted. In particular, it appeared to, in the summary, as addressing the liability associated with passing certain information during the reference checkpoint. As you analyze the Wisconsin law in conjunction with this policy, do you think the Wisconsin law is appropriate, or do you think any changes would be required to properly implement the policy you have to protect the liability of the system going forward, to properly disclose the information as suggested to address the problem? Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Style. And yes, I think in terms of protection for employers, the Wisconsin's law is sufficiently robust. I think where California's law goes a step further and potentially could be the subject of some discussion of the legislature is it additionally protects witnesses, complainants as well from potential claims of defamation, so they sweep them in as well. We've got a pretty robust protection for employers in Wisconsin against anyone who would bring claims for reference checks. As long as we're not malicious and as long as we don't lie, we have immunity under Wisconsin's reference check statute. But I think those two provisions would significantly enhance and encourage individuals to participate in and report issues of sexual violence and sexual harassment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Style. Any other regents have questions or comments? Regent Atwell.
Again, I want to commend you and the group for the work and for the time you spent explaining it to us. I take some comfort that our policies are well thought through and will be implemented. Probably the second most nauseating aspect of the kind of cultural thing that we seem to be going through right now, and it's really a gift from the Me Too movement, is the awareness of how policies and procedures can be applied down the org chart, but it's the ability of powerful, influential, impactful figures, whether they're in the media, in the academy, in sports, in religious institutions. We seem to be able, through policies and procedures, to kind of get at the little people, but the nauseating aspect of powerful people hiding at the top of the org chart is the part that I think is something, I guess I just want to say to us as regents and as system people and chancellors, there's an accountability of the policies and procedures that we have that policies and procedures can't instill. And we are foolish if we look at instances like Michigan State, like Penn State, like within the Catholic Church. We're foolish if we think we don't have the ability through group dynamics to close ranks around something in the name of protecting the institution. And so I just want to encourage us all to embrace the work that you've done and also embrace the awareness that some of this emanates from the cultural courage we have to do the right thing, regardless of what we think the implications are to the institution. So it can't apply to the little people and not to the big.
Thank you, Regent Atwell. Any other questions or comments, Regents? If not, I would like to agree with the sentiment of many of my fellow regents. Incredible work done by our working group. Since we have a number of our working group members here, I'd ask that they'd stand so they could be recognized and applauded by the board. Thank you so much, and thank you, Quinn Williams. Know that we're going to put this item back on the agenda in October, so know that we look forward to hearing your next report, and thanks again for all of your very hard work. Cutting edge, and I think we're ahead of, I think the other systems are looking at us, and Wisconsin is yet again leading the charge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move to item number 12 on the agenda. We'll now turn our attention to an update from the Sexual Violence and Harassment Priorities Working Group. Senior Associate Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer, Shanita Brokenberg, co-chair of the group, will bring us up to speed. Shanita, good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning to you all and thank you for having us. This is an update on the President's Sexual Violence and Harassment Priorities Working Group. As background, in December 2016, UW System President Ray Cross adopted the report and recommendations of the UW System Task Force on Sexual Violence and Harassment. A threefold purpose guided the work of the task force when it was first established. The first, ensure compliance with new and existing requirements established by state and federal laws and the expectations of enforcement agencies related to this area. Second, continue the efforts to promote a culture of prevention, timely reporting, and effective response to allegations of sexual misconduct. Third, serve as a clearinghouse for resources concerning training, research, and best practices. This resulted in 2 overarching mandates for immediate implementation. Review, revise, and comply with Regent Policy Document 14-2, Sexual Violence and Sexual Harassment, Regent Policy Document 14-8, governing consensual relationships. I'm pleased to report today that we have 100% compliance across UW System institutions. Did you hear that? 100% compliance. And we needed to implement mandatory training for employees and students on preventing sexual harassment and sexual violence. To date, we have a 99.6% completion rate for employees. The student completion rates will be reported to you in October of October 2018. So in order to ensure compliance with task force recommendations and to establish additional expectations, the President's Sexual Violence and Harassment Priorities Working Group has been created and endorsed. This working group will provide recommendations to President Cross on the ongoing UWSA and institutional commitment to enacting task force recommendations. The work group priorities include conducting a current state assessment of Title IX, a comprehensive policy review by internal audit as a partner, developing an advanced training curriculum for first responders and Title IX coordinators, review of record keeping, data collection, and technology used in the process of reporting, tracking, and monitoring all allegations. And lastly, identify best and most common practices. And our target due date for all of that work is October 1st, 2018. The working group project structure includes myself and Quinn Williams, General Counsel, as executive sponsors, and my colleague, my very hardworking colleague next to me, Christopher Paquette, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Policy and Compliance at UW Green Bay. Christopher, turning it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Brokenberg. The current working group was made up of 11 members representing 9 institutions in the UW system, and we strove to have a diversity of representation, so we sought human resources directors, Title IX coordinators, and deputy coordinators, representation from the Dean of Students Office and Student Affairs personnel, as well as equity and diversity directors. So we were looking for a variant of subject matter expertise when it came to input, as this particular topic impacts all of them. We've also reached out to UW System Internal Audit, and Ms. Stortz has been wonderful in her level of cooperation with us in providing us consultation and resources that are allowing us to move forward in a way that will not be duplicative of any of the work that they may be doing in the future. As Dr. Brokenberg addressed, there were some priorities that were set forward, and we have compartmentalized those into 4 different categories. Specifically, best practice and recommendations on intake and workflow. Luckily, the Office of General Counsel had begun a lot of that work, and we are, at least as to the data collection piece of that, the last report was that we are confident that we have completed the data collection piece of that. The second piece was the recommendation for data reporting and a central repository software. Again, Office of General Counsel did some wonderful advanced work on that allowed us to move forward quickly, and we are also working with the Office of Human Resources at UW System to do a solicitation of other Big Ten institutions to see what technology they use in common reporting and making sure that that is available in a more ready fashion than it is right now. Number 3 was policy review and recommendations for consistency. UW system policies, or Board of Regents policies, 14.2 and 14.8, as Dr. Brokenberg said, have all been implemented on the campuses. It's now, the next step in that process is to review those individual policies to ensure that they are consistent. The institutional policies are consistent with 14.2 and 14.8, and again, UW System Audit has been very helpful in providing that assistance on that assessment, while we are very cautious about keeping a bright line between the 2 institutions. That is, we do not want audit making recommendations to us per se on the content of those policies. We are looking to them as guidance for review and how to best assess the commonalities and any gaps that may commonly exist between the institutional policies. Finally, number 4 is the advanced training for first responders and Title IX coordinators. Again, Office of General Counsel was very helpful in identifying some of this as a gap. Many institutions are spending considerable internal resources to obtain this type of training, and perhaps there's a better way to do it if we establish some common trainings that we expect to have, not just for faculty and staff, but particularly for student review committees, Title IX coordinators, investigators, people who are charged on the institutions with those particular duties, and making sure that we're being very efficient in the administration of that training to make sure that 13 institutions aren't paying for 13 different trainings that may all be the same. So with that, we have split into 3 subgroups that are addressing each one of those pieces. Those subgroups are working hard, and again, I can report at this point that at least as of yesterday, we believe the data collection piece is done, and we are ready to move on with assessment, and hopefully we'll be ready to start our first drafts mid-September.
What questions can we answer for you?
Certainly. Regents, do we have any questions for our presenters? Regent Milner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually think this is more of a question for UW-Madison, but issues of sexual violence and alleged sexual violence are sweeping through the athletic departments of our major universities. And as I recall, Athletic Director Alvarez in February said he was conducting or establishing a special work group within the UW-Madison Athletic Department. So I'm asking for an update of that and if that work has been completed.
Is this on?
It is, and go ahead. Chancellor Blank.
Yes, that update should be completed. It's expanded to include more things. I think it's an incredibly comprehensive audit of a lot of different aspects of athletic department functioning. And the expectation at one point was they were going to give you an update at this meeting. They simply weren't completed yet. I'm expecting this to be completed in September. And I think the plan is that we will come back and update the Regents on this with the report and answer any questions whenever it can be on the agenda later in fall.
Thank you, Chancellor. Other questions for Shanita or Christopher? Regent Atwell.
Yeah, may I actually direct a question to Chancellor Blank?
Chancellor Blank, you're up again.
Yeah, you know, as you know, my father's a lifelong higher ed guy, And he's actually a very close student of the national issues involving D1 athletics. And one of the specific things he has said to me is, Bob, as a regent, I think you want to be cautious about allowing these matters to be contained within the athletic department itself. So my question for you is, can you assure me or us that you have sufficient knowledge and control and awareness of any emerging issues regarding financial stuff or behavioral stuff within the athletic area? Because it is one of the areas where historically powerful people have been able to hide.
Yeah, it's a topic of potentially a longer conversation. We have a number of controls from outside the athletic department itself, and I should note that no student disciplinary issues are adjudicated within athletics. They're adjudicated within our student disciplinary group, which is not at all, not inside at all. I meet once a month with the athletic director. I meet once a month with the head of the athletic board. The athletic board is a group of faculty, staff, community members, and alumni who place someone on every team to be in touch with that team, who ask questions, who are charged with meeting monthly and doing external oversight of the department. In addition, my Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration regularly does oversight over the budget, and our legal team regularly talks with the regulatory and compliance people inside athletics. I'm quite aware of the need for external review. Can I promise that never will anything happen that we don't see? Of course I can, but I do think we have the controls in place.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chancellor.
And as a follow-up to that, Regent,
Go ahead, Regent.
I just want to, so Ray, are you satisfied that you have sufficient knowledge of, and I don't mean to pick on Madison, it's just that that's where most of the D1 activity is. Are you satisfied that you have sufficient visibility and awareness of the issues that may arise in that area?
I am, and I agree with Chancellor Blank. There probably are things that will bypass that anyway, but I also appreciate your earlier comments about our responsibility and the importance of that. The reason I say I am is because when the Michigan State situation broke, I asked Becky, and I'm not sure if I asked her if she informed me before I even asked, some of the issues that concern me, and one of the things that you see on that first point is how are these issues handled? What's the flow chart look like? To whom do these people report this information? Because it was apparent from the Michigan State situation that that information, probably a lot of it didn't even get out of the athletic department. And so right away, Becky said, well, we don't do that. We have access to that. So that gave me a level of comfort in that process. And my answer to your question is, I think I do, but I suspect there are always issues that, like you mentioned early, power does conceal, and we have to do our best to break that up.
Thank you.
And I would just jump in on President Cross's statement. As chairman of the board, know that the chancellors, immediately after connecting with Ray, they call me as well. And so as things do develop, I think the chancellors have been great about communicating to the chair of the board as well.
Thank you.
Certainly. Regents, other questions? Seeing none, let's give a round of applause to our two presenters. Moving to item number 13 on the agenda, this is the final meeting for one of our colleagues. As most of you know, Cathy Sandeen, Chancellor of UW Colleges and UW Extension, has accepted a new position as Chancellor for the University of Alaska Anchorage. To read a resolution of appreciation, Regent Ryan Ring, the floor is yours.
I first met Cathy at my first board meeting in Milwaukee last June, and I've since admired her hard work at promoting the open access to education here in Wisconsin. And we actually both share a special attribute, which is we're both first-generation college students. So Cathy, on behalf of the students across this system, I just want to say thank you. But now I'll read a resolution of appreciation on behalf of the Board of Regents for Cathy. Whereas Cathy Sandeen has served with distinction as the third Chancellor of the University of Wisconsin Colleges and University of Wisconsin Extension from 2014 to 2018, and whereas Cathy, drawing on her experience as a first-generation college graduate, served as an advocate for open access to education in all its forms, the embodiment of the Wisconsin idea, and whereas Cathy led a restructuring of UW colleges into a streamlined, consolidated, and regional administrative structure, large portions of which have been retained by the UW system as part of its commitment to operational reform and excellence, or CORE, initiative. And whereas Cathy led a new vision for the 100-year-old UW Cooperative Extension Organization to help secure its continued viability and to enhance its flexibility, including digital delivery of essential programs and services to the citizens of Wisconsin. And whereas Cathy fostered the growth of new programs like UW Flexible Option, WisContext, Food Finance Institute, and Edible Alpha within various UW Extension divisions. And whereas Cathy established productive relationships with counties, municipalities, elected officials, professional and industry groups, employers, and community leaders, reaching virtually every corner of Wisconsin. Whereas Cathy has demonstrated focused and committed leadership throughout the restructure process. Be it therefore resolved that the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin System offers sincere gratitude to Chancellor Cathy Sandeen for her service and dedication to the University of Wisconsin Colleges and the University of Wisconsin Extension, as well as the entire state of Wisconsin, and wishes her continued success as Chancellor of the University of Alaska Anchorage.
Thank you for your service, Chancellor, and we wish you the best in your new position. Moving on to Regent Communications, Petitions, and Memorials. On behalf of the UW system and the Board of Regents, we offer condolences to the family and friends of Professor Nick Karolitis of UW River Falls, who passed away in early June, just shy of his 90th birthday. We are deeply grateful to Dr. Karolitis' distinguished service and many contributions to the UW system in the state of Wisconsin, and we take a moment to acknowledge his exceptional impact as a teacher and a mentor to so many students, even including myself. Dr. Karolitis taught English at UW River Falls for 48 years, and his influence will long be remembered. Are there any other communications, petitions, or memorials? Seeing none, I'll now ask that Regents stay here through the roll call of closed session and then reconvene in the Sonata room. I'll now turn it over to Regent Vice President Drew Peterson to move us into closed session.
I take great delight in delivering our closed session agenda, which is very, very brief today. And with that, I move that the Board of Regents move into closed session to consider personnel evaluations of chancellors as permitted by Section 19851C of Wisconsin statutes.
May I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, roll call vote, please.
Regent Bailing.
Yes.
Regent Peterson.
Yes.
Regent Atwell.
Yes.
Regent Delgado. Regent Evers. Regent Greeby. Regent Hall. Regent Jones. Regent Klein. Regent Milner. Regent Mueller. Regent Peterson. Regent Plant. Regent Ring.
Yes.
Regent Style. Regent Tyler.
Yes.
Regent Whitburn. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll reconvene in closed session in the Sonata room.